How we going, guys? Liam here, back with another video, and today I thought I'd talk about my own story and experience with pornography. Now, this is a very touchy subject in a lot of people's lives, and I just feel like I have to talk about this story because I want to help people overcome that addiction, because I've overcame my addiction, and I feel like this video can help other people. I want this video to motivate people, show people that it is possible, and to show people that just by taking action in your life and accountability, that you can do anything you want to do in your life. And I hope this helps you. So I'm just going to be getting straight into the itty bitty gritty details for today's video, and just starting off with how I came across it. So it was the year of the pandemic, COVID, 2020. And obviously, being a young teenage boy in grade 10, I wanted a better dopamine hit. Obviously, being a young teenage boy, that's what a lot of you pretty much want. And, TikTok girls and Instagram girls clearly wasn't enough for me, unfortunately, when I say that. And I just searched up a random topic on Pornhub, and from there, that's when it all started. And I remember the video that I watched. I can exactly remember how it went, and it's pretty sad, but it was probably a key and pivotal moment that my brain probably wanted to remember in my life, and I'm glad I did, because it affects me in a way, but a better way. I'll say that. But I remember that feeling for the first time of just watching it, and after I finished off, and it was just unhealthy. It was just so hard to explain, but it was just unhealthy shake. I just shake so uncomfortably, and like a drug addict that's just had heroin in their veins for the first time, or their first hit of weed or something, that just first hit, and you just shake in excitement, and it was just so unhealthy. I just felt, I don't know, so good but so bad at the same time. And I just remember that feeling, and all you could say was that I wanted more of that feeling, because who wouldn't? It was the best dopamine hit I've probably ever had in my life. I shouldn't stop, and I should keep going back for it. That was the mindset towards it. But from that day on, that's probably where my downfall really started as a human being. And it kind of just, started off as, a once a day or once a night thing. Then it kind of turned into a 3 times a day thing. And it kind of just took control in my mind then. It was just a bad habit that I had to do every day, and just to feel good in myself, just to be able to get that dopamine hit, just to feel so good, like I'm the man, I'm this, I'm that, I'm cool now because I watch porn, I fit in with everybody else. But what I didn't realize was the true effects this would have on me, and I'll get more into that later. But I felt like I could fit in with other people, I guess that as well, just wanting to fit in, because obviously when you're at that age, it's the only thing that boys want to talk about, and that is girls, and that's normal too. And it's, I guess, to a degree normal for boys to come across pornography, but I feel like it's just not normal for them to make it their life. And I feel like that's what it is in lots of men's life, and probably what's it in your life too. It just becomes a part of their life in such an unhealthy way that it just, controls them and defies real expectations of what a relationship is. And for me personally, I didn't see that at the time. Obviously, being in grade 10, I was young, dumb, stupid, and broke. I was just, loving that feeling, and, loving that feeling of being able to fit in and feel cool. But it wasn't really, I didn't really notice any effects probably until grade 12. I was pretty much doing it probably 3 times a day when I was at home, probably once in the morning, twice at night when I get home from school. And didn't even really notice, but I couldn't really talk to girls anymore, because obviously I would just think of porn when I was talking to them. And how fucking weird's that? How fuck's that? It was that ingrained into my mind, and it was that much of a habit in my life that it was just the only thing on my mind 24/7. And things were kind of starting to click and going, hey, this is not actually normal. And I didn't have any drive, or I didn't have a clear idea of what I really truly wanted in my life. And, all I wanted to do was just get that dopamine hit like a drug addict. Drug addicts only do drugs just to get that hit. And I feel like, fapping and watching porn was that drug. And dopamine was that drug in my life. And it was slowly starting to click, because I wasn't talking to my family as much as I wanted to over those past couple of years. I feel like it destroyed my relationships with my mum and dad and my sisters and my whole family, because, when they were out, doing things and, out loving life, I was just in my bedroom watching pornography and just letting myself waste away to it, and letting myself waste away to that dopamine hit that I was getting every single time out of it. And yeah, it was pretty fucking sad. And I was truly lonely, because I felt like I was helpless against it. I just couldn't do anything in my life if I wanted to achieve anything. I feel like I couldn't do anything. I felt like I could just only sit in my bed and just do nothing and waste away with that dopamine hit. I couldn't be who I wanted to be, and I had no idea who I wanted to be. And this slowly led to, bad mental health, obviously, and bad physical health. I put on a lot of weight. I ate junk food all the time, and I just had no self-esteem for myself. I feel like I couldn't, help myself in any shape or form. I just looked at myself and go, you're just a loser. You can't do anything you want to do in your life. What are you doing? You should just go get a dopamine hit so you can feel good in yourself. You are nothing in this world. I heard it all, and this destroyed me, and it took me to a lot of dark places in my life at that time. And I never truly admitted that to anyone, and I didn't want to be a burden on anyone, if I'm being totally honest there. I just didn't want to make anyone feel like they had to go out of their way just to, save me. And this really took me to a real dark place at the start of 2023, when we obviously finished school. And I'll talk about a trip we went on. My family were generous enough to take me to a trip to New Zealand. And I remember the whole time I was just in that bedroom thinking about and watching porn, and just, watching sexy women and watching Netflix the whole time. I was not out there enjoying the nature. I wasn't enjoying the trip. I just was wanting a fucking dopamine hit every single day when I was there. And that was pretty fucking poor and sad on my behalf. They spent all this money just for me to jerk off in a different hotel room every single night and make an excuse not to go out there and, enjoy the scenery. I was truly just watching porn and fapping to it every single time. And yeah, that was probably one of my biggest regrets, to be honest. I wasted their money just for me just to, watch porn and not actually enjoy the time of being there, enjoy the atmosphere and enjoy the scenery. I just wanted to eat junk food, watch Netflix and fap and watch porn. And that's fucking poor on my behalf, and I'm truly sorry for that, guys, if you are watching this video. I feel terrible about it every single day. But moving on to that, well, there till New Year's, and I didn't really have a New Year's resolution. I was probably drunk off of Bundaberg rum. I remember that. I was pretty pissed. I was drinking a lot. We're just in a hotel room. Watch the fireworks go off. I'm like, cheers to another year of, being a failure, pretty much. That's all I was probably thinking at that time. I can't really remember that time. But 2023, I was in probably the darkest, the 2 first months, January and February, probably the darkest months I've ever had in my life. I was just in a real dark place. I was just, I just wanted not to be here anymore, in those words. I'll just say that. I won't say these exact words, but I just didn't think I could take it anymore. I just felt like I was helpless against it. But the thing that truly turned me around was exercise, and it saved me. And I can't thank exercise enough. And it was probably one of those things I was doing, consistently on and off. I wasn't actually, doing it just on. I was just doing it on and off at the time. But February is probably the month where I truly locked in and just exercised 5 to 7 days a week. And, it was probably for the first time in 3 to 4 years that I wasn't thinking about porn in my life. And it was that time when I was exercising, I couldn't actually think about porn. I was just focused on, hitting that fitness goal of lifting that weight up or, doing a certain amount of reps. That was my actual goal. I was pretty surprised, I'm like, holy shit, I didn't actually think about it that whole time I was up there. I wasn't thinking about sexy women. I wasn't thinking about some lady's tits. I wasn't thinking about some lady's private parts. I was just focused on real life things, and that truly just unlocked something in my mind. Like, holy shit, maybe I just need to replace my time with other habits, like better habits. And I could probably phase out the bad habits if I just keep on producing the good habits. And that was probably the biggest turning point in my life. And from then on, I was working five to 7 days a week. I was working out 5 to 7 days a week of just doing weights, cardio, and random things. Like, I truly had no idea what I was doing up there. I was just doing random things. But, as long as I was up there, enjoying it and, not thinking about porn, it was a big win in my books. And I was loving it, and sometimes the occasional thought would come on, but then I'll just use it as motivation to lift up that weight in anger or anguish. I felt like, I was in so much pain mentally, mentally destroyed from porn. And that was a big motivational point for me to lift that weight or keep on running and not stop running, and just to not let it win. And yeah, from then on, that led to me wanting to do more, which led to me wanting to challenge myself a lot more. And I started walking up mountains, every Sunday. And, at first it was hard, I didn't think I could do it, but it was more time away from home. And I feel like when I wasn't at home, I wasn't really thinking about porn. And when I was challenging myself and under stress and physical stress, I also wasn't thinking about porn. And I didn't think I could climb up this mountain. I thought, it was a long shot for me just to be able to walk up. And it was tough. It was fucking tough. It was brutal. I was sore as fuck. I just wanted to walk back down. But, the one thing that kept me going was, not going back to porn. I didn't want to feel, that pain of just failing, and that pain of, feeling lonely and wanting to not be here anymore. And just, because I felt like I was a monster for watching porn. I just didn't think I was a human being anymore. And when I just had all those thoughts run through my mind, that's what kept making me walk step after step up that fucking mountain. And I got to the top, and it opened my mind again to so many endless opportunities that I could do anything I put my mind to in my life. And, just made me continue to do that every Sunday from then on. I just made it a Sunday routine, and I would replace one of my exercise days with that, because that was still exercise. But, I was up there for at least 4 to 3 hours a day, on a Sunday, not thinking about porn. And I'd feel so much better. I'd get that dopamine hit of, getting up there and, accomplishing my goals. And that is true dopamine. You don't want that unhealthy dopamine. And I was replacing that unhealthy dopamine with good dopamine, which was through exercise. And from then on, I was thinking about it less, and I was doing it less, actually. I was only really doing it once a week, because, I was so focused and obsessed of not doing it. And I feel like, being obsessed to not do it, it was bad, but it was good at the same time. I'll kind of go about that into a different video. I was just, obsessed about, being better in myself. And when I just truly focused on exercise and challenging myself by walking up that mountain, I was winning it. I was beating it every single day of the week. And after that, I was only really watching it 2 to 3 times a week at that point in time. And, I didn't want to see the progress at the time, and I truly look back and go, holy shit, that was a big step in my life, and that was a big significant drop down in watching it. But at that point in time, I thought I could be better. Like, I thought, I was making no progress when I actually truly was. And I feel like that's what, led to me watching it more often at some points, and then on and off, watching it more, watching it at least 5 times a week to 2 times a week. And yeah, thinking that way kind of affected me negatively. But when I finally started to see the progress that I was making and watching it less, I actually like, holy shit, this is actually a big jump in for where I was to where I am now. Like, I'm only doing it twice a week. I'm watching it twice a week, Liam. Like, that's still fucking amazing. And when I started to see that, that started to build my confidence even more. And I still didn't know what I truly wanted in life, but at that point in time in my life, what I truly wanted to be was to truly be better in myself and to, break free of that addiction. And that was what I truly wanted at that point in time, which is where I am now. But I'll continue on the story. So it was probably towards the end of 2023. I was only really watching it twice and once a week consistently. And I was, doing my exercise routine, and I also implemented my time by, doing other things that I wanted to do, which was like working on my car, doing other YouTube things. I had another YouTube channel at the time, and that's what I was pursuing, to, spend my time. I was spending my time out of the house more often, doing things I wanted to do and hanging out with my mates, making true memories and making, true dopamine memories, and just, connecting with them, talking about life, and just generally, whenever I hung out with them, I just would feel like myself, and I'd just feel so happy. So thank you, boys, for that. If you are watching this video, you truly made me feel like I was a human being and that I truly mattered to people. And yeah, I felt like, I was getting my life back, and I was truly becoming myself again. And, it was probably Christmas Eve, December of 2023. I got the best early Christmas present of all, and that was a girlfriend. And, without even realizing it, I talked to a girl, and without even realizing I was talking to a girl, and it was one of my exes, but, we never ended on bad terms. And it was me because, obviously we're on and off during that time where I was kind of changing for the worst. And, obviously I was changing for the better, and I shot my shot, and I got lucky, and she took me back. And I can't thank her enough for that, because from that day on, it was probably the biggest excuse not to watch porn or ever touch it again. Because, I had those tough moments where I really wanted to watch it, or, have that dopamine feeling in 2024 when I was obviously with her. But I didn't, because, it was breaking that trust and that loyalty again. And I didn't want to do that to her, because I already broke her trust, so many other times throughout the old relationships we had together. And a lot of you are probably thinking, well, yeah, that is a very big excuse not to watch porn. And, I'm proud of myself, for that excuse, to have that excuse, really, because that's kind of what actually got rid of porn out of my life. And I have not watched it in a year and a half now. And I'm so fucking proud of myself for it. And, obviously we had our ups and downs at first in the relationship when you obviously do stuff, because obviously porn defies what reality is, with actually doing stuff. Because when you actually do stuff, it's not like the videos. Trust me, it's not. And it was hard at first, because obviously it wasn't working, if you know what I mean. I'm not going to go into much detail there, but after some time, things started to work in that aspect, because, I actually was getting the real expectations of the relationship, and I started to feel, oh, okay, this is actually how it works. It's not how it actually works in the videos, pretty much. That's how my realization came to thought. And yeah, I've never been happier since. She's the love of my life, the girl of my dreams, and I couldn't be happier. And even though there was those hard moments, I still didn't watch it, because, I already built that better habits into my life and built that routine, to replace my time, with other things rather than thinking about it. And also that thought of, having a girlfriend and being with her, that was another excuse not to watch it. And yeah, I feel like from then on, I probably could have, broken free of that addiction without a girlfriend, because I feel like I was on that path, to probably cutting it down to once a week thing. And I feel like around in 2024, and probably halfway through, I probably would have stopped watching it at least, because I was on that path of just, becoming better, becoming more mentally tougher, and not really thinking about it as much. But yeah, I feel like through what I did by exercising, by challenging myself, and just by implementing better habits into my life, I just changed me for the better. And it replaced that bad habit with those good habits in my life. It kind of built a good foundation of discipline in my life, just not to watch it, and just to have to do my good habits and my good routines in my life. And I hope this video motivates you and helps you to do the same. I hope you take this video and go, okay, We need a game plan. I need to understand that I can't just cut it out like the snap of my fingers, because you won't, you can't just do that. You've got to cut it down slowly. That's going to be my best piece of advice I can give to you. You've got to understand and see the progress in it. You're not going to be able to cut it off straight away. You've got to kind of cut it down slowly, replace that habit with better habits by getting out of the house, getting out of your bed, and, just doing those better habits, like, hang out with your friends can be one of them. It was one of them for me. Doing exercise, doing challenges, and just trying to think to yourself and have that conversation with yourself. What do I truly want in my life? And once you can find that, go for it, obsess about it. Because when you obsess about that, it's time in your life that you're not obsessing about porn. Because trust me, when I was obsessing about things I truly wanted in life, I was truly happy. Because when I wasn't obsessing about porn, I was 10 times happier. And I can guarantee to you, you're probably 10 times happier if you're obsessing about something that you truly want in life. But yeah, guys, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help out the channel, and get this video across to many other people that might need it. And yeah, I believe in you. Come back to this video whenever you need it, but you're going to need time. It will take time to cut off. But thanks for listening. I'll catch you on the bloody next one.